When I was 12, my parents finally trusted me enough to leave me home alone for the night. We lived in a quiet, safe little town, one of those places where everyone knows each other, and nothing bad ever seems to happen. My parents were young and active, always going out on weekends, and my older sister was away that night. It was just me, the house, and a stack of video games. They left me money for pizza, and I spent the evening playing James Bond on my old PS2, barely noticing the hours slip by. When I finally ordered the pizza, I was excited for the freedom. No rules, no bedtime, just me and a whole pie from Johnny's, our favorite spot. The delivery guy showed up around 8:30. He looked rough, long beard, glasses, black trucker's hat. He handed me the pizza, counted out my change, and then paused, peering past me into the house.
You alone here?
He asked me. My parents had drilled it into me to never admit I was home alone, so I lied. No, my parents are on their way home. He just nodded, handed me the change, and left. I closed the door, feeling a little uneasy, but tried to shake it off. I ate, wrapped up the leftovers, and went back to my games. Hours passed. It was probably close to 11 when the doorbell rang again. I figured it was my parents, so I rushed downstairs. But when I called out, "Mom? Dad?" a stranger's voice answered from the other side.
Hey, I need help. Can I use your phone?
I froze. I asked who it was, but he just repeated that he needed to use the phone. I didn't want to look through the window. I was too scared. Instead, I went upstairs, hoping he'd leave. As I climbed the stairs, the man banged on the door and said,
Wait, please, I need help.
That's when I realized he could see me through the glass at the top of the door. I turned and saw the outline of his head, staring right at me. I ran to my parents' room, locked the door, and called my mom. She sobered up instantly when I told her what was happening. She asked if anyone knew I was home alone, and I remembered the pizza guy's question. As I told her, the doorbell rang again, twice. The man wouldn't leave. My mom told me to stay put, keep the door locked, and wait for the police. She kept me on the line, feeding me updates, telling me to stay quiet. Then I heard the gate to the backyard open. I whispered to my mom, terrified, and she told me to stay hidden. I heard footsteps downstairs. Someone was inside the house. My mom screamed into the phone for the police to hurry. She told me to hide under the bed and not make a sound. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, then down the hallway. The doorknob rattled, then a light knock. The person tried the knob again, then walked away. I stayed silent, barely breathing, until my mom told me the police were there. I heard heavy footsteps and a man shouting my name, identifying himself as an officer. Only then did I unlock the door. The police found the back door wide open and the sliding window in the den pushed aside. I told them everything, including my suspicion about the pizza guy. My parents came home, and we went to Johnny's the next night to try to identify the delivery guy, but he never showed up. The manager insisted it couldn't have been their employee, and the police said there wasn't enough evidence to do anything. After that, my parents never left me home alone again, and I never forgot the feeling of being watched from the other side of the glass. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, the kind of place where the biggest excitement was Friday night football or the annual county fair. Our house was on the edge of town, right where the last streetlights faded and the woods began. My parents both worked late shifts at the hospital, so by the time I was 16, I was used to being home alone at night. I never thought much of it, until the night I realized just how alone you can feel when someone's outside, watching. It was early November, and the first real cold snap of the year had just hit. I was home alone on a Thursday, curled up on the couch with a blanket, watching old horror movies and texting my best friend. Around 10:30, I heard a soft thud against the back of the house. I paused the movie, listening. Nothing. I figured it was just a branch or maybe a raccoon, so I went back to my phone. A few minutes later, I heard it again. This time, closer, like something tapping on the glass. I muted the TV and sat up, heart starting to race. Our living room had a big window that looked out onto the backyard, and beyond that, just trees. I crept over and peeked through the curtains, but all I saw was my own reflection and the faint outline of the swing set. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. I texted my friend, joking that maybe Michael Myers was out there. She sent back a laughing emoji, but I could tell she was a little freaked out too. I went to the kitchen to grab a drink, and that's when I saw it. A face pressed up against the window above the sink, pale skin, wide eyes, and a mouth twisted into a grin that didn't look human. I dropped my glass, shattering it on the floor. The face didn't move. It just stared at me, fogging up the glass with every breath. I ran to the front door, locked it, and grabbed my dad's old baseball bat from the closet. I called 911, voice shaking, and told them someone was outside my house. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and wait for officers. I could hear footsteps crunching in the frost outside, circling the house, stopping at every window. The police arrived 10 minutes later, lights flashing, and searched the yard. They found footprints, bare, even though it was below freezing, leading from the woods to every window, then back into the trees. But the man was gone. The officers told me to keep the doors locked and call again if anything happened. They said it was probably just a drunk or a prankster. But I knew better. I knew what I saw. And for weeks after, every time I looked out a window at night, I half expected to see that face staring back at me, waiting for another chance to come inside. I was in college when this happened, renting a small house with 2 friends just outside Asheville, North Carolina. The place was old, with creaky floors and a wraparound porch that looked out over a narrow gravel road. We were all used to the occasional weird noise or stray animal, but nothing ever really scared us until the night we realized someone was watching us from just beyond the porch light. It was late March, and we just gotten back from spring break. My roommates, Jamie and Marcus, were both out that night, so I had the house to myself. I spent the evening catching up on homework, then made some ramen and settled in to binge a new show. Around midnight, I heard footsteps on the porch, slow, deliberate, not the quick scurry of a raccoon or the heavy thump of a delivery. I muted the TV and listened. The footsteps stopped right outside the living room window. I crept over and peeked through the blinds. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, as my eyes adjusted, I saw a figure standing just outside the circle of porch light. He was tall, wearing a dirty gray hoodie, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He wasn't moving, just standing there, staring at the house. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I texted Jamie and Marcus, asking if either of them had come home early. Both replied no. I tried to convince myself it was just someone passing by, but the man didn't leave. He just stood there, shifting his weight from foot to foot, never taking his eyes off the window. I called the non-emergency police line, feeling a little embarrassed, but the dispatcher took me seriously. She told me to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and wait for a patrol car. I turned off all the lights and sat in the hallway, clutching my phone. Every few minutes, I'd hear the boards on the porch creak as the man moved from one window to another, always just out of sight. It took the police almost half an hour to arrive. By the time they pulled up, the man was gone. They found muddy footprints all over the porch, pressed right up against every window and door. The officers searched the yard and the woods across the road, but there was no sign of him. For the next week, we kept the porch lights on all night and double-checked every lock before bed. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear the boards creak again, and I'd wonder if he was out there, just beyond the light, waiting for another chance to come closer. If you've ever felt that chill run down your spine when you catch a glimpse of movement outside your window, or heard footsteps on your porch when you know you're supposed to be alone, you know how real this fear can be. Sometimes, it's just your imagination. But sometimes, it's not. These stories aren't about ghosts or monsters. They're about the real people who wait in the dark, just outside the safety of your home. They remind us that the scariest things are often the ones we can see, the ones that leave footprints in the frost or tap on the glass, just to let you know they're there. If you've ever had a someone's outside moment, share your story in the comments. I read every single one. And you never know, your experience might be the next one I share. Don't forget to subscribe for more true horror stories. And remember, always trust your instincts, double check your logs, and never ignore that feeling that someone might be watching, because sometimes they really are.